How great was that? Hartford, Eddie, Lake gets in there, of course, and just great to see you guys out there at the racetrack. We'll be back doing that soon. But now we've got something that this is becoming one of my favorite parts of the Engine Performance Expo, because it's kind of like we bring the brain trust out here. We got Charles Navarro, we got Chris Straub, of course, Scooter, Randy Neal making his first appearance, of course, David Bianchi. These guys are like captains of industry in the engine performance world. We're going to talk a little bit about their take on the economy, like where are things at right now. Last year, the call was pretty much generally positive, I think, and over the course of the season, that proved out to be true, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. Chris, we're in your place. You guys host us here for the Engine Performance Expo. You were very bullish last year. Like, I was actually surprised walking out here. You're like, my business is good, my customers are good, they want what they want, and they're ready to get it. And did that prove true for the remainder of the year?
Yes, it did. Again, blessed with another record year last year. I have been a little bit worried about the economic indicators and, of course, listing the news that we might be going in a little bit of downturn. But the first week of 2023, I mean, we set a weekly record for sales and stuff. So I have to go back to, the Roaring '20s came out of the Spanish flu pandemic. I still think people after COVID were fed up with what we've had to put up with for 2 years, and they're going to do what they're going to do type deal. So the money is still being spent. Spent a little time with my banker the other day. They said, mortgages, they've kind of tapered off, but businesses are borrowing money and people are spending money and stuff. So I'm not an optimist, not a pessimist. I'm a realist, but in reality, things are looking pretty good so far.
That's great to hear.
Well, I know supply chain was a big challenge throughout the pandemic, and that was probably the thing that was the specter that was looming over the industry last year, was how much was supply chain going to affect things. And I know, Charles, you made some significant capital investments to try to change your supply chain scenario. So talk about that for a minute.
So we manufacture cylinders and sleeve blocks, but we can't sell those parts if the customer can't get everything else they need to be able to build the engine. So we were looking at 1 year, 1.5 years of purchasing and ordering that well in advance, because lead times were it was taking us 42 weeks to get head gaskets, just to give an example. And we had to plan for that. And thankfully, lead times have come back down, but what we're still seeing, a lot of the OEM components, that there's still shortages here and there. Like, we ran out of lifters, of all things, for a modern water-cooled engine. You'd think, how hard could it be to make a lifter, 10,000 of them at a time? No, and timing chains, things that are critical. You can't build an engine without lifters or without a timing chain. So we're still seeing that. But the customers, it was a record year for us last year, and so far January has been our best 2 weeks that we've ever had. So we're seeing the exact same things. Met with our banker, went over everything. They're wanting to lend money. Yep. They want to work with us, and however way they can. So we're seeing all the same things.
That is exciting. Randy, what about you? You first of all, I want to just get you in the game here. First of all, welcome back. Good to see you. What has been your experience?
Out of control. That's the best way I'm going to define it, and that is everybody had a certain pessimistic idea. Coming out of COVID, none of us knew what to do. We were watching raw material costs go stupid on us. Availability was just nuts. Any businessman doesn't like to be in an environment of non-control. And if you don't have some reasonable target numbers that you can validate, well, it's a nervous position. It'll put a knot in your stomach. Listen, I'm the most surprised guy in the room, because if there's a recession, they forgot to tell me, because everybody is just headed our way. Our business is fantastic. We dedicated to capital investment, which I think is the key. Raw material issues. Look, we have 1.5 years of done inventory sitting there because we took the bull by the horn and said we're going to get caught with our pants down. So it's a struggle at one point, but it's a blessing right now, because the customer calls us up and says, hey, I'm interested in a machine. And I keep it very simple. You got money? Yeah, I'll send you a machine. Done. Now, I'm not having any slowdowns whatsoever. None, nada. So I think there's a great opportunity right now. I would like to tell you it's a perfect science, but I'll go with luck. Let's put it in that perspective. And I think everybody here is the benefactor of a very surprised economy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, racers want to race.
Oh, yeah.
And I've been saying it for a couple of years. COVID was the best thing that ever happened to the racing industry, because the attitude at the racetrack pre-COVID, especially from the circle track group I've been around, they were tired. They were worn out. They've been doing the same thing forever, and people started to kind of fall off because they just gotten tired of it. But taking racing away from them made them more hungry. I mean, I'm as guilty as anybody else. Is that I wanted to go back to the racetrack with my dad and go vintage racing so bad because there'd been so much time off. You couldn't do it. You wanted to go, and it was just great to go back to the racetrack. That you missed those people. You don't. They always say what you never really appreciate something until it's gone.
Right.
I think COVID did a little bit of that, and maybe that's what's going on. Maybe there are other factors outside of our racing and performance enthusiast economy that may be tapering, but our group, like you said, has that Roaring 20s mindset. I'm going to go racing. I'm going to build my project car. I'm going to do whatever it takes to move my business forward, modernize my equipment, do what I got to do to continue forward long run. I think that's what we're seeing. Again, I could be totally wrong, but I feel like that's what's happening.
One of the best parts about the Engine Performance Expo, and I really wish everybody behind the scenes there could be a part of like what we did last night, Scooter. We had a meal, we all got together, we all hung out at one of Chris's favorite places, and Scooter and I were having a great conversation about like the want to do this, the passion to get out there, the feeling of, I've got to be involved with this. You told a story about sleeping in the trunk of a car at your first drag race because you didn't have money to do it. People are going to find a way to do the things that make them happy. And going fast, building cars, being in that culture. There are families that's the core of what they do, and they're going to do it. What has your experience been, Scooter?
I agree with everything everybody said. That COVID's been good. Everybody worked on their cars. They're ready to go. What scares me, a couple of things, is there was an infusion of money into our customer base like it'll never be seen again in the history of the world.
Right.
And they're spending that money. And that's not a real thing. That's not something we can base our lives on going forward, because it's likely to not happen again.
Right.
And at the same time that's starting to dry up, interest rates are beginning to creep up. And it hasn't gotten to the point yet where it stings, but it could be. And those of us who are old enough to have bought a house at 18% interest can remember that that's a big, big difference. Or buying a car and having to pay 7, 8, 9% interest for a car, it changes things. And I don't worry, but I'm concerned that we're riding this wave right now of after COVID and wanting to get out and anxious and enthusiastic, and we're paid by COVID relief money. That's fueling the fire. And this thing is up and running, and people are going and buying and doing. But on the other side of that, if you look a little bit further, if the COVID money slows down, which it will, if the interest rate sneaks up, which it will, is this going to be strong enough to sustain through that time that's going to come on the other side? And, it's so sad that we're all kind of wired to the political aspects of the country, and that could change in 2 years, and it could be the end of this thing going down that I'm talking about, where it keeps going up, or it could be the other way around, where it goes off the cliff. Charles and I were talking last night about we're both hooked on Fox Business, and you start watching the business of things and thinking about not today, but what's 4 or 5 years out. It is it's just something to think about. I'm extremely bullish about today. I think we've got 2 or 3 years to ride this bullish thing out at least. But we really need to be watching to make sure that we're not heading down something that if it looks like it's going to go off, we just need to start preparing for it and circle the wagons before it happens.
Well, we definitely have to have racetracks, and we've got to have enthusiasts.
Yep.
We got to have racetracks, we got to have enthusiasts, we got to have places to do this amazing hobby that we have, and we got to have people to do it. David, what about you? You're kind of in an interesting situation because you guys go into a shop and you ask people to make a CapEx investment that is large, but you're going to give them the most cutting edge technology they can have, and I would imagine that's a purchase that they're going to make and have and use for 10 years or more. How has it been for Rottler?
No question that automation is important, and people are looking at how to run their businesses going forward to attain their business goals without more overhead, et cetera. But, from a manufacturing standpoint, I'm going to lean on what Scooter said, and I think it's a real important point. The inflationary climate and paying attention to it. So our business over the last 3 years is up 65%. Which for Rottler is huge. As we look forward, we're very, very bullish. Our 1, 3, 5 year plan all looks good. We've diversified across all of the different markets that we serve. Feel very strong about high performance and engine rebuilding in general due to some other factors. But the reality is, we're buying parts, we're issuing purchase orders, and those parts aren't arriving for 6 months. If there's a snap in the supply chain, we may build a machine and it's missing a motor or a ball screw. That machine sits. At Rottler, that turns into 30 machines that sit for a $200 part. So watching the inventory and watching these things is important. Then comes the inflation component, and I think this is important for just everybody in this room. You have a product that's going out that you took an order for a year ago. You have your cost of goods climbing, and your price is a year old. So the pricing, so you're selling the product at what would feel like a discount, but your cost of goods have gone up. So the bottom line is less than maybe you anticipated despite the volume. And that is the inflationary climate combined with supply chain issues. Right. And I think everybody has to watch that, especially engine builders. It's the same situation. I hear it all the time. Chris, you're talking about a guy can't get a lifter, right? Right. Such a simple part, but it devastate that whole $30,000 engine or whatever it is.
That we'd get it right after Christmas. If that shop's flooded, I have no idea when I'm going to get that part. So the everyday user, when we tell them on the phone, I have no idea. When that thing hits my dock, I can tell you when you're going to get it. But if you want me to lie to you, I'll give you the proverbial 2 weeks. But we just don't know. Stuff like that is happening right now, and we have no control over it.
There's a lot of areas that are out of control. I mean, during the last year and a half, I've thought about you, Scooter, so many times. Like, the oil business has been hammered.
Unbelievable.
I mean, everybody else's bad situation, theirs is times 10.
There was a fire at one of the Lubrizol plants. That makes the additive. Well, they just said, hey, it's not worth rebuilding. We're just going to close it down. Yep. You guys go somewhere else. And then there was a flood. Another one washed out. And they had to replace that one because it was some critical stuff. But, some of these products are through all this other no fault of anybody, but they're going to go to no end-of-life stuff where we just got to go do something else.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's just where the audience watching, the industry just needs to know these are the volatile times we live in.
Right.
This is all behind the scenes.
Yep.
All these things happen. It has nothing to do with that guy's engine at a racetrack.
Yeah.
But it has to do with all the things that we have to do to get it there.
To make it work.
Who supplied the neon for computer chips? 50% of the world's neon. You know where that came from? Ukraine. You think Ukraine is shipping neon for computer chips right now? That's part of our problem. We sitting here have no control over that situation. None.
On that note, though, and it's interesting you bring that up because that's something that I've been watching and very interested in. Not to diminish any of this stuff, but Scooter mentions 18% interest rates. That's when my parents bought a house. Isn't there always something, though? At some point when you look back, like, okay, the pandemic, before that, financial crisis of 2007, before that, September 11th, before that, and you guys could add your version of that. And this community, and I think America in general, what makes it what it is the ability to figure it out, to figure out a way around it. Like, okay, they're closing the plant. What can we do to get around that? Would you agree with that statement? That like that's why we are what we are in America, and I think racers are like the most American of all, able to improvise, adapt, overcome, get around the challenge of the day, whatever it is, as big as it is. And I think September 11th was the one that shocked me the most. Like, oh my gosh, the world is stopping. No, it's not. We'll figure it out. And we did.
And I think you're right, and we will, and that's what makes the high performance in the racing industry so cool to work in, is because we collectively figure it out. We just go forward.
We are an industry of modification, so we're good at modifying.
I think the statement is hold my beer.
That's the racer version of we're resilient, right? So if you're the Wall Street Journal, you're resilient. If the racer says it, hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
I'll make that happen later.
But I think that's why it's good to have these kind of roundtables, because it's good for everyone to share off each other's experience, but it's also good to let the audience and the viewers know what's going on, so they have a better expectation of when you say it's 2 weeks or I don't know, they understand why. You know, it's an important thing. So I say that's why we're here at the Engine Performance Expo. But we're not done.
Oh, no.
We have a lot to go still.
We've got a lot to go, but again, this is always one of my favorite parts, because I know whether or not to get a second job. And thanks, guys. I can stay on this one. That is great stuff. I appreciate it. And everybody seemed generally bullish with concerns, thoughts, things to prepare for. But that is good. What we're going to do right now is prepare for the next video.
Exactly.
So we're going to keep it on trucking here at the Engine Performance Expo 2023. Still a long way to go. Remember, if you're out there on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell, share, tell your friends, check out our next video. What a day, what a day, what a day. My brain is swollen. I've learned so much today. They told us, don't start cars,